Have you ever wondered what it would feel like to wake up one ordinary morning only to discover a secret so big it could uproot your entire life? Imagine being a self-made billionaire admired by millions, courted by the media, and convinced you've secured your place at the top. Then picture finding a cold, hungry teenager sleeping against the gleaming tires of your luxury car. Your first instinct is compassion. But what if a stunning DNA test reveals that this young stranger is your child? The shockwaves from this revelation trigger a cascading chain of events that will leave you breathless with every twist. Alexander Westwood was no stranger to early mornings. At 50 years old, he'd learned that success often came during the hours when most of the city slept. On a crisp autumn dawn, he left his penthouse in downtown Seattle to head into the office, a routine that had become almost sacred. Alex prided himself on punctuality, self-discipline, and a relentless drive that had elevated him from a middle-class upbringing to the status of billionaire entrepreneur. His portfolio included cutting-edge tech companies, philanthropic foundations, and real estate that spanned multiple continents. He had recently become more than just a fixture in the business world. He was recognized at high-profile events, rubbed shoulders with magnates like Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, and attended galas held by global figures like Oprah Winfrey. Journalists lauded his success story as inspirational. He came from the humblest of beginnings, built an empire on the back of a groundbreaking cybersecurity startup he founded in his 20s, and invested shrewdly to multiply his fortunes. To the public, Alexander Westwood was a visionary, a philanthropist, and a genius. But the man behind the brand had a void, one that not even billions of dollars could fill. When Alex stepped out of the elevator and into his private parking garage that morning, something was different. Instead of finding his usual empty corner space, the one reserved for his prized midnight blue Aston Martin, he saw a figure curled up beside its gleaming tires. Surprise and alarm struck him simultaneously. Homelessness was not uncommon in the city, but this parking garage was access-controlled, and any trespasser was immediately suspicious. He inched forward, his heartbeat quickening. A closer look revealed a teenage boy, likely 15 or 16 years old, clad in a threadbare jacket, his face tense with the anxious restlessness of a person who's never sure where the next safe moment will come from. The boy's hair was disheveled and faint bruises marked his arms. His shoes were falling apart, soaked from the drizzle that had enveloped Seattle overnight. "Hey," Alex called softly, resisting the impulse to startle the boy. "Hey, kid, are you all right?" The teenager's stirred eyes fluttering open. Momentary terror flashed across his face. He scrambled backward, fear dictating his every move, but exhaustion clearly weighed him down. Whatever had driven him into this upscale garage, it had to be desperation. "Are you hungry?" Alex asked gently. The boy stared back in silence, his eyes haunted. Moments passed in uncertainty before he nodded almost imperceptibly. That was how everything changed for Alex Westwood. He didn't know that this seemingly random act of kindness would flip his world upside down. He couldn't guess that the boy dozing by his Aston Martin held the key to a secret from his past, one that would redefine his future in unimaginable ways. Alex led the teen, whose name he would later learn was Aiden Stone, to the security guard station at the entrance of the parking structure. Jim Caldwell, the guard on the night shift, was a retired Navy veteran who prided himself on his vigilance. The presence of a homeless teen inside a high-security garage baffled them both, and yet Jim's fatherly instincts matched Alex's concern. Aiden was visibly shaken but remained silent. His eyes darted around as if he expected at any moment to be thrown out, or worse. His posture was rigid, like a cat ready to bolt, every muscle taut. He cradled a tattered backpack in his arms, clinging to it with desperation. Alex spoke softly, leaning in to avoid scaring him. "Aiden, right? Are you alone?" "No family around." Aiden's reaction was immediate. He froze, words lodged in his throat, and then he merely nodded once he was alone. "Let's find you something to eat," Alex said, "and then we can figure things out." They ascended back to the penthouse, each footstep echoing in the marbled hallway. For Alex, it felt surreal guiding a barefoot teen across polished floors that cost more than most people's entire apartments. Up in the kitchen, he handed the boy a freshly laundered robe and gestured toward the guest bathroom. "Take your time," he said. "You can wash up and afterward we'll talk." Aiden vanished into the bathroom, the door shutting with a soft click. Once alone, Alex felt a swirl of feelings unfamiliar to him. His philanthropic endeavors, funding scholarships, building homeless shelters, were executed through official channels. He rarely engaged in direct one-on-one contact with those in desperate need. Now confronted with a shivering, terrified teenager, he wondered, what if there was more to Aiden's story? When Aiden emerged clad in the plush robe, the hot shower had chased the tension from his face, but his eyes still brimmed with fear. Alex discreetly placed a tray of fresh fruit sandwiches soup on the counter. Aiden ate ravenously as though he hadn't seen a decent meal in days. Between bites, Alex peppered him with gentle questions. Where do you come from? How did you end up here? Aiden's answers were mumbled vague. He'd been on the streets for several weeks. His mother had died, he said in a voice that cracked with grief, and a relative who was supposed to care for him had kicked him out soon after. His father, I don't know anything about him, Aiden whispered, turning his gaze away. Something about the sorrow in the boy's voice clutched at Alex's heart. He'd always suspected that if he ever became a father, he would be prepared, protective, and supportive. But he'd never even come close to having children. His personal life, overshadowed by his relentless business ambitions, had left little space for meaningful relationships or family. Sure, he'd had girlfriends and the occasional fling, but nothing lasting except for one relationship in his youth that had ended abruptly with heartbreak and bitter regret. At that thought, a ghost of a memory flickered across his mind of a woman named Lillian Parker. They'd parted on tumultuous terms. Could it be no, he thought. That would be too improbable. He shook away the notion and returned his attention to Aiden. I can help you, Alex offered. But I need to trust that you'll be honest with me. If you have no place to go, stay here for a while at least until we figure something out. Aiden merely nodded, too overwhelmed to articulate anything beyond quiet gratitude. For Alex, it was an uncharacteristic act of compassion. His schedule rarely allowed for personal entanglements. Everything in his life followed a meticulously planned routine. Yet seeing Aiden's frailty ignited an impulse in him, something paternal, something that made him want to shield this boy from the cruel elements of the world. The next few days were a whirlwind. Alex arranged for discreet medical checks for Aiden, wanting to ensure the boy was healthy. He also called a private investigator he'd occasionally use to do background checks on potential employees, Tom Bradshaw. Tom was a former police detective known for his thoroughness and confidentiality. I need you to dig into this boy's history, Alex said after explaining how he found Aiden. His mother died recently. He has no father on record. I want to see if we can locate any relatives or guardians. Tom, always efficient, promised to handle it swiftly. Aiden's presence in Alex's penthouse created a noticeable shift in the atmosphere. The staff housekeepers, the personal chef, security detail were used to a quiet environment. A child's uncertain footsteps moving across the floor or the timid request for a snack at odd hours was an anomaly. Yet they responded with kindness, setting out blankets, offering late-night sandwiches, and making sure Aiden never felt alone. Despite the comfort offered, Aiden remained reticent. Late one afternoon, Alex discovered him on the balcony overlooking the city. The horizon glowed with the sunset's fiery orange and pink hues. Aiden sat cross-legged, arms wrapped around his knees, eyes distant. The boy's expression was a storm of sorrow and confusion. Beautiful view, isn't it? Alex said, settling into a chair beside him. Aiden nodded, wiping at his eyes to hide unshed tears. What was your mother like? Alex asked, hoping to open a small window into the boy's memories. She was the best, Aiden replied, voice trembling. She used to say I'd do great things one day, even if we didn't have much. Then she got sick leukemia. We couldn't afford treatment. She did everything she could. His voice broke and Alex instinctively placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. They remained silent for a moment, the hum of city traffic humming far below. A question gnawed at Alex. Was the boy telling the truth about having no clue about his father? The sincerity in Aiden's eyes left no room for doubt. It was possible his mother had never revealed the father's identity. At length, Alex cleared his throat. Once Tom gets back to me, we'll figure something out. In the meantime, I want you to consider this place your home, at least temporarily. Aiden gave a faint smile. Thank you. I didn't want to break in or anything. I just saw the car and it looked safe. I just needed a place out of the rain. Alex returned the smile, but his mind drifted. He tried to recall if Lillian Parker had ever contacted him after their split. A single letter, an email, a phone call, anything. He remembered one day noticing a message on his answering machine, but the voice was muffled, the phone number unlisted. He'd been swamped with early investor meetings, living out of hotels, barely checking messages. Could it have been her? He dismissed the possibility as paranoia. The city was filled with countless tragedies. Not every teenage boy with a missing father was connected to his past. He would help Aiden out of basic human decency. That was all. 4 days later, Tom Bradshaw returned with a file. As soon as Alex saw Tom's expression, grim hesitant, he knew something more complicated than a typical heartbreak lurked beneath the surface. "You should sit down for this," Tom said, flipping open the folder. Photocopies of hospital records and birth certificates were clipped together. A small photograph of a woman with kind eyes and a bright smile captured Alex's attention. "Is that—" Alex whispered, his chest constricting. The woman stared back at him through decades of separation. "Lillian Parker." It is Tom confirmed. Aiden's mother was Lillian Parker. According to these documents, she never listed the father's identity on the birth certificate. She died of leukemia at a public hospital 2 months ago. No known relatives except for a half-sister who refused custody. Aiden ended up in the system, but it looks like he ran away. Alex couldn't breathe. This was the same Lillian with whom he'd had a brief, intense relationship in college right before he left for a competitive internship in Silicon Valley. Their final conversation had ended with doors slammed and tears shed, but he'd never known she was pregnant. She never told him. Tom continued. "There's more. According to some hospital records, Lillian told the attending social worker that Aiden's father was an old flame. She tried to reach him but never succeeded. Possibly she didn't know how to contact you or thought you wouldn't respond. When her health deteriorated, she stopped," Alex said hoarsely, running his hands over his face. His heart pounded so loud he could hear it in his ears. Lillian had tried to reach out. She had been sick alone with a child that might be his. Guilt and sorrow hit him like a truck. "I need a DNA test done," he finally muttered, voice shaky, discreetly and as quickly as possible. Tom nodded. "I anticipated that. I've already set up an appointment at a private lab. We can get a sample from Aiden without alarming him too much. Maybe just say it's a routine medical check." Alex stared at the photograph of Lillian. He remembered her laughter, the warmth of her eyes, the nights they spent in half-empty college dorm rooms, dreaming of a future that never came. And now here was Aiden, the living link to all that once was and all that had been lost. A week later, the DNA test confirmed the inevitable truth. Alexander Westwood was Aiden Stone's biological father. Even though Alex had prepared himself, the official result jolted him like a lightning strike. He shut himself in his study, the printed report trembling in his hands. He was a father, a fact concealed for 15 years. Lillian must have gone through unimaginable struggles alone while he built his empire. That evening, Alex decided to tell Aiden. He found the boy in the media room, curled into the corner of a leather sofa, watching a documentary about marine life. Alex shut off the screen gently. "I need to talk to you," he began, breath quivering. Aiden glanced up, confusion crossing his features. "Sure." A heavy pause. "We ran some tests, medical ones. I didn't mean to do it behind your back. I just needed to be certain. It turns out that I'm your father." At first, Aiden said nothing, his face a blank slate of shock. Then as comprehension dawned, tears welled in his eyes. Anger, sorrow, hope, emotions flashed rapidly. "My father," his voice came out in a whisper, trembling. You, but Mom never told me your name. She said she tried to find you." Alex's gaze fell. "I think she did. There was a time I got a message, but I never followed up." God, Aiden, I wish I'd known. I would have helped. I loved your mother, even if we parted on bad terms." Aiden rose suddenly, fist clenched at his sides. "If you'd known, would you really have helped? Do you know what it was like? She was so sick, and we had no one, no money. Sometimes we were hungry for days. I took odd jobs, tried to help her, but nothing was enough. And you," he swallowed hard, tears streaming down his cheeks. "You were living in a penthouse. You had everything." The last words dripped with betrayal and anguish. Alex reached out, but Aiden stepped back, eyes blazing. "I'm sorry," Alex repeated, voice breaking. "I can't undo what's happened, but I want to make it right now. Let me take care of you. You're my son." Aiden turned away, hugging his arms as if trying to shield himself from a lifetime of pain. "I don't know if I can trust you." In that moment, Alex felt powerless. He, the billionaire tycoon who controlled the fate of multinational corporations, had never felt so helpless. The chasm between them was vast, a testament to lost time and missed chances. The only path forward was to bridge it slowly, one step at a time. News of Aiden's existence was kept under wraps at first, but secrets have a way of escaping, especially for someone constantly hounded by journalists. A single slip, an offhand comment by a staff member, or a glimpse of Aiden stepping out of a chauffeured car was all it took. Rumors trickled into the business rumor mill that Alex Westwood had taken in a teenage ward. Paparazzi began sniffing around. Then came the calls, reporters from tabloids wanting a statement on the mysterious minor living with Seattle's most elusive billionaire. One morning, as Alex and Aiden sat at the dining table, a commotion erupted at the building's entrance. Several reporters had gathered on the street shouting questions at passers-by. Through the tinted windows, Aiden caught sight of the cameras. Instantly, his face went pale. "What are they doing here?" he whispered, panic tightening his voice. Alex sighed heavily. "They want a story. They'll chase anything that looks like a scandal or an angle, especially if it can tarnish or sensationalize. I'll handle it." Before he could exit the apartment, Alex's phone buzzed. It was his longtime personal assistant, Ingrid Johansson, a calm, collected presence who managed the chaos of his daily life. "Mr. Westwood, the media is in a frenzy," Ingrid reported. "Some of your board members at Westwood Ventures have caught wind of a rumor you fathered a child years ago, and the mother recently passed away. They're concerned about how the scandal could affect the upcoming tech merger." Of course they were. His board rarely concerned themselves with matters of the heart, only how it impacted the bottom line. For so long, Alex had prided himself on his impeccable public image, a serious entrepreneur, philanthropic, scandal-free. Now a teenage son homeless until days ago it surfaced. The board's paranoia about the potential negative press threatened to overshadow the genuine paternal crisis Alex was experiencing. Alex replaced the phone on the table, exhaling. Aiden watched him, worry etched across the teen's face. "Is this because of me?" In that second, Alex resolved something. He might not have been there for Aiden's first steps or for Lillian's hospital visits, but he would protect his son now. "None of this is your fault. We'll figure it out." Before he could say more, the elevator door pinged. Camille Darcy, Alex's fiancée, emerged. She was a striking woman, a successful attorney from New York, known for her ambition and sharp intellect. With chestnut brown hair pulled into a sleek bun and wearing a fitted charcoal blazer, Camille was every bit the corporate powerhouse. She paused, eyes flicking from Alex to Aiden. "Is it true the reporter's downstairs?" she asked, frowning. Aiden shrank under her gaze. Alex placed a hand on Aiden's shoulder. "We're dealing with it," he said. Camille's expression hardened. "I wish you had told me." "This is huge, Alex, and the timing could be catastrophic for the big merger. You know how skittish investors get around scandals." Alex bristled. "Scandal, that's my son we're talking about." I expected a bit of empathy. She pursed her lips. "I'm trying to be understanding, but I have to think about the bigger picture. We have responsibilities. Our personal lives can't derail everything. The PR team needs to handle this carefully." A heavy silence followed as Aiden stared at the floor, heartbreak weaving across his young features. Camille exhaled as if recognizing her harsh tone. She drew a shallow breath and approached Aiden, forcing a small smile. "Look, I'm sorry for what you've been through. It's just a shock. We need time to adjust." Though the words sounded conciliatory, the tension in her eyes betrayed deeper worries. Aiden could sense her caution. Alex felt torn between the woman he intended to marry and the son he had just discovered. The precarious balance between business responsibilities, personal relationships, and fatherhood had never felt more fragile. Over the next several weeks, Alex was thrust into a maelstrom of corporate obligations. The proposed merger of one of his tech subsidiaries with a European conglomerate teetered on the edge of collapse. Rumors about his newly discovered son fueled speculation that Alex's life, and by extension his business, was unstable. Westwood Ventures board members pressed for immediate damage control. During a high-stakes meeting, one board member, a sharp-tongued financier named Sebastian Green, pulled Alex aside. "We respect your personal troubles," he said, voice dripping with condescension, "but we also have a fiduciary duty to protect the company's interests. Any whiff of scandal might send our stock tumbling. Investors get queasy fast." Alex fought the urge to erupt. Instead, he forced composure and replied, "My personal life and this merger are unrelated. I trust you can reassure stakeholders of that." Sebastian sniffed. "We hope so." The press is already painting dramatic headlines. "Forgotten son of billionaire discovered homeless." We can't ignore the optics. Alex's jaw tightened. He despised the cynicism with which they discussed Aiden's plight. There was no mention of the boy's suffering, only concern about how it reflected on profit margins. Swallowing his anger, Alex promised tighter PR control and concluded the discussion. Outside the boardroom, Ingrid discreetly informed him that Aiden had another panic attack triggered by news cameras outside the building. They wanted a statement, and Aiden was terrified to appear on camera. For a teenager who'd been living in the shadows thrusted under the media's glare was an unbearable assault. Alex left the office early, ignoring the board's disapproving glances. At that moment, only his son mattered. Back at the penthouse, he found Aiden hiding in his bedroom, curtains drawn. The boy looked up, and his eyes puffy from tears, hugging his knees to his chest. "I'm sorry," Aiden murmured, voice shaking. "I didn't mean to make all this trouble." Alex's heart sank. He crouched beside the bed and placed a gentle hand on Aiden's back. "No, I'm sorry you have to deal with this mess. I hate that you're scared." Aiden sniffled. "They're not going to leave me alone, are they? The paparazzi, the reporters." Alex inhaled deeply. "I can't promise they'll go away soon, but I'll do everything I can to protect you. There are ways, legal avenues, restraining orders, security protocols. You won't have to face them alone." A tear rolled down Aiden's cheek. He wanted to believe in Alex's promise. So much trust had been broken before by relatives, by life itself. Could he truly rely on his newfound father? Amid the chaos, friction between Alex and Camille intensified. She had a major trial looming in New York and felt pulled between her ambition and the role she was expected to play as Alex's fiancé. The tension about Aiden's sudden presence made them argue late into the night. "He needs me here," Alex insisted during one heated exchange. "You know I can't fly to Europe for the merger negotiations yet. Not while Aiden is dealing with all this media insanity." Camille massaged her temples. "I'm not saying you should abandon him, but we need to strategize. Maybe we could send him to a boarding school or to a private facility that can handle the press. He'd be taken care of, and you'd have your time freed up to manage the merger." Alex stared at her, incredulous. "You want me to ship my son off?" "He's not a liability to be hidden away. He just lost his mother and discovered his father. I'm not sending him to some impersonal institution." Camille crossed her arms. "You're emotionally compromised, Alex. This is about practicality. He's a 15-year-old boy. You're running a global empire. You can't do both effectively." A raging silence followed. Alex's anger flared, but he tried to keep a lid on it. He realized that Camille, for all her intelligence and passion, might not share his newfound paternal instincts. A wedge was forming, and neither knew if they could push through it. A few days later, after a particularly bitter argument, Camille packed her suitcase. "I'm heading back to New York for a while," she said, eyes cold. "We both need space. Maybe after some time apart we can think clearly. Call me if you decide to be reasonable." When she left, Alex felt an odd mixture of relief and sorrow. He turned his attention fully to Aiden, who was slowly beginning to trust him, albeit with caution. They started spending quiet mornings together. Alex teaching Aiden simple breakfast recipes in the high-tech kitchen, or the two of them watching sports events late at night on the massive television. Each small moment felt like a fragile step in rebuilding the lost years. However, in the background, the corporate pressure mounted. The merger was weeks away from a final decision. The board demanded Alex's presence in Europe. Meanwhile, Aiden's mental health wavered under the glare of media scrutiny. He had nightmares about his mother, about being abandoned on the street, about mobs of reporters chasing him. Alex feared leaving him alone, so he decided to bring Aiden along on a trip to a secluded location, a vacation home near Lake Tahoe. Maybe the fresh air and tranquility would offer the boy a respite. Nestled in the pine forest by the crystal-clear waters of Lake Tahoe, Alex owned a sprawling property rarely used except for an occasional weekend getaway. Enormous windows showcased the surrounding mountains, and the serenity offered an escape from the city's tumult. As soon as they arrived, Aiden seemed to breathe easier. He ventured along the hiking trails, sometimes with Alex, sometimes alone. Over time, he opened up about small fragments of his past favorite memories. With his mother, how she always made him laugh when times were rough, how she'd taught him to find beauty in the smallest joys. They even took a canoe out on the placid lake, laughing as Aiden tried to maintain balance, wobbling the boat precariously. For Alex, it was a profound joy. This was fatherhood, something he'd never experienced, a raw and messy and wonderful bond. During one of these peaceful afternoons, Aiden spotted a stray cat near the cabin's porch, scrawny and skittish. Intrigued, he spent hours coaxing it with bits of leftover fish. Eventually, the cat crept closer and Aiden stroked its fur gently. "He's just scared," Aiden whispered, smiling at the purring creature. Kind of like I was. Alex felt his heart clench. Aiden had come so far in such a short time, yet healing was still ongoing. In the quiet hush of the pine-scented air, Alex felt something shift inside him. He no longer viewed Aiden as a responsibility or an obligation. He was a son in every sense of the word. On the second morning by the lake, Alex's phone buzzed. The ID displayed Tom Bradshaw's number. He stepped onto the porch to take the call. "Alex," Tom said, tension thick in his voice. "There's new information. Lillian left a safety deposit box in your name. She must have added your name years ago. She had instructions that you'd be notified if anything happened to her. I only just uncovered the details. The bank wants you to come in." Alex's mind raced. What could Lillian have left behind? A diary, photographs, letters. The thought frightened and exhilarated him. Whatever waited in that box might offer more closure or open fresh wounds. He glanced toward Aiden, who was playing with the cat by the lakeshore. The boy's laughter mingled with the soft crash of water against rocks. If there was a final message from Lillian, Aiden deserved to see it too. Less than a week later, Alex and Aiden returned to Seattle to access the safety deposit box. A discreet trip to the bank early in the morning ensured minimal public attention. Inside a small private room, a bank official slid a slender metal box onto a table. Alex felt his palms sweat as he popped it open. Neatly stacked inside were a bundle of letters, some photographs, and a worn-out necklace with a pendant. One Alex recognized from decades before, a small locket with a pressed flower inside. With trembling hands, Alex and Aiden began to read Lillian's letters. They were heartfelt and raw, charting her journey from the time she discovered she was pregnant to her frantic attempts to trace Alex's contact details. She'd tried old phone numbers, reached out to mutual college friends, even mailed letters to an office address that no longer existed. A few letters were addressed to "My dearest Alex," but never sent, detailing how she longed to tell him about Aiden. One letter was written right after she was diagnosed with leukemia, describing her fears of leaving Aiden alone in the world. By the time Alex finished reading, tears streamed down his cheeks, his breath ragged. Aiden wiped his eyes and gazed at the photographs. One showed Lillian in a hospital bed, a weak but determined smile on her face, hugging Aiden close. Another captured her wearing that necklace, pregnant, a faint glow in her expression. "She wanted you to know," Aiden whispered, voice trembling. "She tried." Alex cupped his hand over Aiden's. "I'm so sorry, son. I wish I'd been there. She died thinking I didn't care." Aiden gritted his teeth, tears falling freely. "She wasn't angry with you. She was sad, that's all. She said you were a good man. She believed you would have helped if you knew." In that moment, Alex felt an odd sense of absolution. Lillian's words offered him a semblance of forgiveness. He silently vowed to honor her memory by ensuring Aiden got the support, love, and stability that he had lacked all these years. But their challenges were far from over. Outside, the media continued to circle and the board breathed down Alex's neck regarding the merger. Moreover, Camille's calls had grown more sporadic. The distance between them seemed to widen each day. Shortly after accessing the safety deposit box, a breaking news segment aired on a tabloid TV show. They leaked a sensationalized account of Aiden's birth, claiming Alex had abandoned Lillian. They alleged a hush money deal, painting Alex as a cold-hearted billionaire who'd neglected his secret child. Aiden watched it on the living room TV, horror etched on his face. "That's not true," he yelled, outraged. Alex switched off the television, rage boiling in him. "I'll sue them for defamation, but even defamation suits take time, and damage travels faster than truth." The general public, starved for scandal, was quick to judge. Social media erupted with condemnation. Hashtags like #Westwood neglect and not deadbeat Billionaire trended for days. The board at Westwood Ventures became hysterical. At a crisis meeting, Sebastian Green confronted Alex. "This is out of control. The stock is plummeting. Investors are panicking. We need you in Europe finalizing the merger, not holed up dealing with personal drama." Alex shot him a steely glare. "I'll handle the business, but I also need to protect my son." Green exhaled. "You can't let this child jeopardize everything you've built. Let the lawyers handle the tabloids. You need to get on a plane now." Alex turned to Ingrid. If I go to Europe for 2 weeks, can you arrange extra security for Aiden? Keep the press at bay? Ingrid hesitated, glancing at Aiden. She developed a soft spot for the boy, seeing how fragile he was beneath his tough exterior. Of course, I'll do my best. That evening, Alex broke the news to Aiden. The boy's face fell, but he tried to sound brave. I get it. You have to go. Guilt gnawed at Alex. I don't want to, but this merger's Aiden forced a nod. It's okay, I can manage. Ingrid is really nice. She'll be around. Alex pulled him into a hug. That night, as he packed for his flight, an uneasy feeling churned in his gut. Despite every intention to keep Aiden safe, something felt precarious, like the ground was shifting beneath them. And it was. With Alex overseas, the wolves circled. Reporters grew bolder, swarming near the building following Aiden whenever he ventured out. Security did their best, but the paparazzi were relentless. One day, as Aiden left the clinic after a routine checkup, a pushy reporter shoved a microphone in his face. How does it feel to be the billionaire's charity case? The reporter sneered. Are you enjoying the fancy life now? Fear and indignation flared in Aiden. He shoved the microphone away, tears blurring his vision as bodyguards whisked him into a car. The next morning, tabloids ran headlines. Westwood's son attacks reporter. Twisted narratives tarnished Aiden's image further, painting him as ungrateful and violent. Alex, busy with high-pressure negotiations in London, learned of the incident through frantic calls from Ingrid. Fury and helplessness warred within him. He longed to fly back immediately, but critical merger deadlines chained him. Meanwhile, Sebastian Green and other board members insisted his presence in Europe was non-negotiable. During a video conference with Ingrid, she confessed, he's struggling. Alex, he misses you. The paparazzi are overwhelming. Alex's jaw clenched. Take him to Lake Tahoe or any secluded place. Hire more security if you must. This will blow over. I'll wrap things up here as fast as I can. Fate, however, had other plans. Camille, sensing an opportunity, returned to Seattle unexpectedly. She showed up at the penthouse one afternoon with a forced smile. Aiden eyed her warily, recalling her earlier talk of sending him away. Camille tried to display warmth, insisting she just wanted to help while Alex was gone. Ingrid remained polite, but distant. Within days, Camille introduced the idea of enrolling Aiden in a posh boarding school in Switzerland. It's for your own good, she told Aiden. You'll be away from all this media chaos, get an excellent education, learn independence. Aiden refused. My father said he wouldn't send me away, he snapped. Camille pressed on, claiming Alex needed space to stabilize the business, that it was temporary, that he'd eventually be grateful. Confused and emotionally exhausted, Aiden considered the possibility. Maybe it was for the best. Then Ingrid caught wind of Camille forging Alex's signature on enrollment papers. When confronted, Camille tried to justify her actions as protecting Alex's interests. Ingrid threatened to expose her, incensed at the betrayal. In the midst of this tension, Aiden overheard a heated conversation between Camille and an unknown caller in Alex's study. Camille was complaining that Aiden's presence jeopardized her own future with Alex, and that if the boy is removed from the picture, everything could proceed smoothly. Aiden's blood ran cold. Feeling like a burden, he fled the penthouse that night, disappearing into the city. When Ingrid discovered Aiden missing, she called Alex in a panic. He was in the middle of finalizing the merger in a boardroom in London. Upon hearing the news, he felt his heart drop into a bottomless pit. What do you mean he's gone? Alex thundered, ignoring the startled looks from European investors. He ran away. How could this happen? Ingrid's voice quavered. He must have overheard Camille. I found her rummaging through official documents. By the time I realized what she was doing, Aiden had vanished. I've alerted the building security and filed a missing persons report. We're checking bus station shelters. I'm so sorry. Alex slammed his laptop shut. I'm coming back, immediately. Sebastian Green rose from his seat, annoyance etched on his face. But we're at the final stage of negotiations. You can't just leave. Alex stared him down, anger and fear mingling. Watch me, he growled and stormed out. Within hours, he was on a private jet back to Seattle, his heart pounding with dread. All he could think of was Aiden alone on the streets, the same boy he had found huddled by his car weeks ago. Now that same sense of abandonment might have driven him back to the place he dreaded most. The guilt gnawed viciously at Alex. When he arrived stateside, local police had little to report. Aiden was a minor, but the city was large and runaways often slipped through the cracks. Tom Bradshaw mobilized his own network, scanning CCTV footage, checking shelters, but days passed with no sign of Aiden. Alex's desperation grew. Images of his son trembling in the dark alone haunted his every waking moment. He even swallowed his pride and pleaded on local television for Aiden to come home, tears in his eyes as he confessed he'd made mistakes but loved his son. The clip went viral, some mocking him, others sympathizing. Finally, after nearly a week, a small lead emerged. Tom discovered that a teenage boy matching Aiden's description had been seen at a downtown soup kitchen. Alex rushed there only to learn the boy had left minutes before his arrival. Determined, Alex combed the streets himself, accompanied by bodyguards, showing Aiden's picture to anyone who would listen. Sleep was a distant memory. On the fifth day, a tip came from a store owner in a rundown district. A boy with the same hair and height was sleeping behind a dumpster. Alex's heart hammered as he raced over with Tom. Sure enough, they found Aiden curled up against a wall, tears staining his dust-smudged face. Aiden Alex cried, sinking to his knees. The boy looked up, eyes hollow from hunger and heartbreak. You found me, Aiden croaked, voice cracking. He wore the same threadbare jacket he'd had weeks ago, refusing to soil the expensive clothes from the penthouse. Alex pulled him into a fierce embrace. I'm so sorry, son. I let my business distract me. You must have felt I was abandoning you. Aiden sobbed into his father's chest. I was scared Camila was going to send me away. I thought, maybe you'd agree. No, never. Alex whispered, cradling Aiden's head. No one will take you from me again, I promise. In that grimy alleyway, father and son clung to each other in a reunion that transcended all the wealth and grandeur in the world. Under the neon glow of a broken street lamp, they began to mend their fractured bond. The hospital lights were harsh, but Alex didn't care. He sat beside Aiden's bed, gripping the boy's hand like a lifeline. The doctors said Aiden was suffering from exhaustion, malnutrition, and mild hypothermia, but he would recover with proper care. Still seeing his son pale and fragile under the sterile white sheets ignited a fury in Alex at himself, at Camille, at the merciless media frenzy that had chased a frightened teenager back into the shadows. Once Aiden stabilized, Alex took action. The first step was confronting Camille. He didn't want a scene, just the truth and an end. I know what you did, he told her calmly, eyes hard. Forging documents, pressuring Aiden behind my back. You went too far. Camille tried to defend herself. I did what you wouldn't. He's a child, Alex. He needs structure. A school, he needs safety. He needs trust. And most of all, he needs a father who won't betray him. You manipulated him when he was vulnerable. That's unforgivable. Her face crumpled for a moment before composure returned like a mask. So this is it. Alex nodded. We're done. You cared more about optics than people. That's not who I want to be anymore. The press caught wind of the breakup within days. Scorned fiancé headlines flooded tabloids, but Alex remained silent. He refused to let the gossip define their reality. His focus was singular, Aiden. But business, relentless and impersonal, still loomed. The merger negotiations were stalling, tensions rising among European investors wary of the ongoing scandal. Alex returned to the table firmer than ever. At one point, when asked why he had risked it all to come home mid-negotiations, he simply said, because my son needed me. No deal is more important than that. His honesty surprisingly struck a chord. Some executives were fathers themselves. Others admired the loyalty. Warren Buffett, hearing of Alex's actions, publicly voiced support. Leadership, he said, isn't just about balance sheets, it's about integrity. Slowly, the tide shifted. The media narrative turned. From ruthless CEO to redemptive father, Alex's image began to evolve. Back in Seattle, Aiden was recovering both physically and emotionally. He'd stopped flinching at sudden sounds. He started eating more, sleeping longer. At night, they talked not just about the past, but about music, movies, and Aiden's dreams. He wanted to learn to code, maybe build an app that helped homeless youth find safe spaces. Alex, once a pioneer in tech, now found new purpose in mentoring his own son. As the merger finally closed in Seattle, Alex stood before the press, not just as a billionaire or business mogul, but as a man who had almost lost everything and then found it again in the eyes of a scared, brave 15-year-old. The cameras clicked, reporters shouted questions, but his gaze searched only for Aiden. And there he was, leaning by the doorway, arms crossed, but smiling that guarded, quiet smile Alex had grown to treasure. In that moment, amidst all the deals and documentation, Alex knew exactly what mattered. Later that night, they celebrated not with champagne or speeches, but with takeout burgers and a Marvel movie marathon in the penthouse living room. Alex let Aiden pick the film. Halfway through, Aiden leaned his head lightly on his father's shoulder. "I'm glad you found me," he whispered. Alex's eyes misted. "No, Aiden. I think you saved me." Spring arrived gently in Seattle, bringing with it not just milder skies and budding trees, but a subtle shift in the lives of Alexander Westwood and his son Aiden. It had been several months since the chaos, the media firestorm, the merger, Camille's departure. The wounds were still tender, but healing had begun to thread its quiet way through their lives. Aiden now attended a small, private school on the outskirts of the city. Unlike the elite academies Camille once pushed for, this one was chosen with care by Aiden himself. It offered therapy programs, supportive teachers, and a level of anonymity that allowed him to be seen not as the billionaire's son, but simply as Aiden. His teachers described him as quiet, thoughtful, and exceptionally bright in subjects like history and technology. He especially enjoyed a coding elective where he was already building a prototype app to help teens locate local shelters and food banks in real time. Alex, meanwhile, had restructured his life around a different rhythm. Morning meetings started later so he could make breakfast with Aiden. He let go of unnecessary business obligations, reassigned travel to deputies, and set hard boundaries with the press. He even installed a small but high-end kitchen nook where Aiden could sit and do homework, while Alex worked on his tablet nearby. It wasn't just parenting, it was partnership forged from pain, but rooted in trust. One evening, the two sat on the balcony of the penthouse, the skyline spread before them like a galaxy of dreams. Aiden nursed a mug of hot chocolate topped with extra marshmallows. Alex had a glass of scotch in hand, but he sipped it slowly, cautiously, as if even indulgence now came with more thought. The silence between them wasn't awkward anymore. It was comforting. "Dad," Aiden said suddenly, the words still fresh in his vocabulary, but spoken with growing confidence. "Do you think Mom would be okay?" With all this, Alex turned to him, his gaze steady. "I think she'd be more than okay. I think she'd be proud of you." Aiden looked down into his mug. "Sometimes I still hear her voice when I'm walking to school or when I feel nervous before a quiz. She used to tell me to breathe, to trust myself. And when I do that now, it's like she's still there." Alex felt a lump rise in his throat. "She is. In you. And in every choice you make that would have made her smile." He reached into his pocket and pulled out something he had been carrying for weeks, a small box lined in velvet. He opened it and handed it to Aiden. Inside was Lillian's necklace, the one they'd found in the safety deposit box. The delicate silver locket with the pressed flower from their college days still looked as fragile and lovely as the memories it held. "She wore this on our first date," Alex said, voice hushed. "And on the day you were born. I think it belongs with you now." Aiden took the necklace reverently, fingers brushing over the locket. He opened it to see the withered petals still intact. "It's like she left a piece of herself for us." Alex nodded. A reminder that love doesn't die. It just takes new shapes. Later that week, Aiden surprised Alex by asking if they could volunteer at a local youth shelter together. "I know what it's like to sleep on concrete," he explained. "Maybe I can help someone else feel like they matter." Alex agreed without hesitation. That Saturday, they spent hours at the shelter serving meals, organizing donations, and listening to stories. Aiden was quiet at first, but as the day unfolded, he offered smiles, small advice, and even laughter. The staff were struck by how naturally he connected with the younger kids, many of whom looked up to him instantly. On the drive home, Alex looked over at his son, silhouetted in the golden hour sunlight, and felt something shift again. Not a dramatic revelation, but a steady truth settling deeper. This boy, once a stranger, was now his greatest teacher. Through Aiden, he was learning patience, humility, and the kind of strength that had nothing to do with boardrooms or fortunes. That night, Aiden fell asleep early, curled up on the oversized sofa with a blanket draped over him and a book resting on his chest. Alex watched him for a moment before dimming the lights. There were still challenges ahead: college applications, someday lingering media interest, emotional triggers that surfaced unexpectedly, but the horizon finally felt hopeful. And for the first time in a long while, Alexander Westwood felt at peace. Life doesn't always hand us neat, pre-packaged endings. Sometimes it's the most unexpected twists, like finding a homeless teenager by a parked car, that lead us to discoveries we never dreamed possible. For Alexander Westwood, the realization that Aiden was his son didn't just change his personal life. It transformed his entire perspective on what it means to be successful. He faced corporate intrigues, media scrutiny, and the judgment of people who only saw a scandal. But through all the chaos, Alex learned that real wealth lies not in dollars or stock options, but in the genuine bonds we forge. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of the power of second chances and the strength of love, please consider giving it a like. Share it with friends who need hope, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss a new story. Thank you for being part of this journey with us.